Have you ever wanted to explore the world of networking and relationship building over coffee and tea? Well, now's the time. Guys, welcome to Brewing Connections. My name's Andrew Haas, and I'm alongside with Jake McNelly. And this is a podcast where we talk over different ideas, be it ideas that are happening with us, or maybe it's even ideas that are happening outside of our bubble. Maybe we network with faculty members or teachers alike or individuals in their fields, getting a sense of what they do and how we can continue brewing that connection over a simple cup of coffee or tea. Jake, welcome to Brewing Connections.
Thank you. I loved that. Do you want to get into why we started this then? I think that's the first thing to get into. And then we'll get into ourselves, and then we'll get into
Sure.
future directions, I guess. And I think that then we'll end it off there. And you can, I guess, close us out with some lovely ending, as you did the lovely beginning.
Sure.
So, okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. So this idea originated summer of our freshman year going into our sophomore year. Jake reached out to me and said, "Hey, Haas, what are your thoughts about doing a podcast?" And I said, "Well, Jake, that sounds like a lovely idea. I've thought about doing a podcast before, but I never got time to do it." And Jake said, "Let's do it now, right now, because I know then we'll do it." So it picked up from the group chat and it made it to live stream. Now all of a sudden we're here and we're talking about things that happen in our lives with the hope of maybe bringing on professionals in the very near future so that we can join students and faculty or maybe even industry leaders alike, and we can have conversations that students or educators want to have with those who are out in the field.
I think I think that's exactly what we're going for. I think we have a special opportunity here to bring in just a lot of different ideas and a lot of different experiences and give people a window to see like the backgrounds of these professionals, the thoughts of these professionals, thoughts of potential professors in the future if we're able to get those into the thing and stuff like that. I think we're hoping to make this a little melting pot of just experiences and ideas and hopefully bring our own personalities into it a little bit if we can, if we're able to do that. But we'll see. But I think then the next thing we have to do is let you introduce yourself, and then I'll follow you, and then we can be a little bit more free-spirited with this episode and then end it off after a little bit.
Okay, perfect. So, hi guys, my name's Andrew Pops Hawes. A lot of people call me Pops. I'm like a father-type figure guy. I even got my own little mug here. But no, so I'm a student at St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. I'm actually dual major in finance, risk management, and insurance. So we talked about the podcast forecast. Let's talk about my forecast a little bit. Right, so I'm educating right now. I'm immersing myself in what St. Joe's has to offer, be that both academically as well as outside the classroom. I'm involved in different clubs and activities that allow me to find who I am and how I can better serve individuals whom I meet along the way. So right then out of college, the hope is some type of financial type position. Meeting with people, meeting them where they're at, and serving their needs as kind of they see fit. I'm just along for the ride as the mediator. And then, Jake, I'll even go like 10 years out, if possible. Yeah,
Honestly, I don't even think that far. Bring it into the thing, please.
but like Jake and I have talked 10 to 15 years out. The hope is that I have my own firm that stresses the importance of educating young individuals and elderlies alike on the importance of financial literacy and how we as a nation can start to rewrite kind of this rhetoric around the financial industry that we have and how we can start, I hopefully can start to fuel that re-education of financial principles so that individuals can achieve that financial stability that a lot of us yearn for. So be that through an entrepreneurship opportunity or even working at a small firm, starting small and then hopefully blossoming big. That's the hope, but we'll see how far that goes, right?
Yeah, I know that I have a lot of struggle. I mean, I think I've told you about it with how to use money for money's sake. You know what I mean?
And it's
If I get money, I'm
confusing.
spending
Like
it. I do not take a single second to even think about what I'm spending on sometimes, or I'll tend to like hold it for a really long time and then have these random like days where I'm like, I haven't spent money in at least a month. I guess it's time where I have to spend every paycheck I've ever, gotten, right? So I think I love what the idea of what you're doing. I think, and I think it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, no,
And I
no,
think this is a
Jake, we
good
we love this. We love this. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think this is a good time to introduce that I am also a student at St. Joe's. I'm a freshman here at St. Joe's, and I am a biology major with a minor in business intelligence analytics. So my main thing is that I want to work with like medical technology or just some type of like technology that works with like biological systems, because I'm just really interested in, I guess, the intersection between machinery and computers and biology, because I think of like biological systems as just more complex computers. If you think to like gene sequences and all of like the molecular stuff, it's like computer binary code or like computer like motherboards and stuff like that. So I just kind of like the connection that you can make between those two, and I want to be working in the intersection. So I think that's my eventual goal. It depends. I don't know how I'm gonna get to it. It's either you go doctor way or you go like higher education way, in like masters in biology or biotechnology. But I have a lot of options to get to where I want to go, and I'm really excited to figure out which direction or like path works for me. I think.
Jake, do you kind of want to be on like the research side and like the development of it? Like kind of what are your thoughts? Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It's just I think when I got like before I got to college, I was thinking like, oh, I want to work with brand new technology. Like I want to be finding new things. But the more I like start to like I guess interact with people like you and like all the other guys and everyone that we've met at like St. Joe's, I kind of started to realize that I do kind of like the like being able to like foster connections, like what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
And I think that, and what I've heard from a lot of people is that scientists and those researchers tend to be not as good at like fostering connections between each other. Like sometimes labs are a little antisocial and stuff like that. And I wouldn't mind. I just talked to a manager of a lab that near me and stuff like that, and he kind of talked about how it's fun to learn about the things they're researching, and then also be able to connect all these different research labs within a company together and be able to have them like talk to each other. And I think I have like the ability. I hope I have the ability to kind of do that. And I think that's where like my skills, like my natural skill set comes in, where like I'm willing to learn and I'm able to learn this type of like the biology stuff and the computer stuff behind it. But I also have the ability to kind of like connect people. So I'm hoping I can be in that area where I'm able to work with this technology and biology and understand it. But I don't necessarily have to be working on it directly, because I don't trust myself with doing anything body used to like scan someone. But I do trust myself with like being able to understand it and like understanding how it's used and how it can be like given to people, I guess would be the best way of saying that. I think that's what I would like to do. But I it always changes. Whenever I learn a new thing, especially at St. Joe's, I always like think I'm like, oh, that'd be a perfect job opportunity for me. I might as well look into that. So I'm usually jumping around. But that's, I think, the main thing for me right now.
Yeah, and I think some of the reason that I even constantly jump around, Jake, is like we have a great melting pot of friends at St. Joe's. You used that word before, and I think like I really like that, because we do. We've really had a kind of a grand community at this point that all has very different ideas and different skill sets. So you can kind of constantly learn from everybody, and you start to develop. We talked about this before, but you start to develop like different thoughts in your mind, and you're like, well, maybe that's an avenue, or that's an avenue.
Right. Yeah. I think that's it's awesome, right? Like,
Yeah.
I haven't even thought about like the type of marketing stuff and stuff like that. But I was just talking to a friend, and he's doing like he's starting his own like small like business stuff, and like I don't know if it'll work out, but like it's kind of when I'm talking to him about it, and the way I ask people questions, it sounds like I'm interrogating them. So I can see maybe I come off a little bit aggressive, but I love like learning the small things about like business that he knows because of the experiences he's had with this small business thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love to be able to like ask the questions about it. So I think if I'm able to put myself in a position where I'm able to manage these people, then I'm able to also learn from them. And then if I have enough knowledge where I'm able to effectively learn from them, I can then allow them to work the best that they can. Like, make it more efficient, like the lab, or make like, I don't know, if I became like any type of manager really, Like I can just make it more efficient through the knowledge that I have about the subject that they're working on. And I think that's like really cool. And I think, especially like with what you're doing, the idea that you're able to kind of, you're not looking to, I guess, necessarily manage people's money or manage their finances in like the traditional sense, but you're like, it's a similar thing to me, kind of like this is where I think we overlap, where you're
Yes.
kind of looking to like foster their own independence in it, where I'm trying to like foster their like people's dependence on one another through like their independence, if that makes sense. I think that's kind of where I think we overlap, is like we're trying to bring the best out of other people by kind of learning ourselves, like because that way,
Yeah.
I've kind of learned throughout the like school year that I do just kind of like to learn new things. Like I like to be constantly stimulated with new things, and I think that like being able to just manage someone doing that type of work and being able to understand it, I can still have the opportunity to get my hands dirty, but then I also have the opportunity to learn new things because I'm not fully focused on something that I'm doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I know that's been one of the great joys about like taking some different courses at St. Joe's is I've learned things, when you're dedicated and you sit down, you can kind of only read so much in a book. And it
Yes.
only like from a conceptual level, it only applies so much. But then when you kind of learn it in the classroom and you have a professor, you start to gain different knowledge and skill sets that I certainly had never used before.
And you wouldn't even look into using, right?
Right, yeah,
Which
exactly.
is what I'd like to like continue to do even after education, is being able to, because I know when I used to do a lot of robotics projects, like personal robotics projects and stuff like that.
Okay.
And even in school, like I know if I'm doing my own work, I know I have that tendency to just kind of like block off all things I don't know and focus on things I do know to get the thing done. Right? Like I program and I know specific things with programming, and I tend to stay with those if I can. And if I have to branch out, I do. And that's why I like programming, because that also gives me the avenue where I can look at different like libraries and different ways of programming. But I'm always super excited to be able to learn the new ways, but I just don't have, I guess, the mental capacity to be able to think about new ways of learning things unless I'm watching someone else do it their way. And I think that that's just a beautiful opportunity that I might be able to offer myself if I position myself right, like in the workforce, where I'd be able to just learn from other people and not necessarily apply it, but just know it and be able to like, see someone else doing it and be like, maybe you can try this person's method, or maybe you can try like this, where I know something. Like just be able to like keep on learning and keep on like trying to teach people based off of what I'm learning, I think.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing too that I've even seen is like I would love to kind of get to that point, but you and I were talking about this a little earlier before we kind of started. But like
Yeah.
marketing yourself is
Yes.
a whole nother thing. I mean, kind of the resume and the cover letter and everything like that. It all starts to, that's one point of maybe the 6 point equation, if you will, that has to be correct. And then you have maybe the interview and kind of your personal skill sets that you have. It's like it's an interesting development. I like even in college where you're kind of handed all these things and you're learning new skill sets and you're kind of applying your knowledge in different avenues. All the while you're like trying to build on your resume.
You're trying to learn and like figure out what you even want, but then you also have to tell people exactly what you want if you want to be able to have those opportunities. Like it's a cool thing, and it's also a crazy thing, and I'm super there for it, right? Like it's definitely something that I'm there for. And that's kind of why, especially like that's why I chose biology. Like originally I was going to go into like biomedical engineering and stuff like that. But with biology, I get to take all these different classes where I kind of get to see new ways of thinking that
Yeah.
like I wouldn't be able to see in biomedical engineering, because that it's such a like intense workload, I've heard, that like I wouldn't be able to branch out and be like, oh, maybe molecular biology could be a cool avenue, or maybe like, pathogenesis, I think it is, that could be a cool avenue. Like I wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. And I think you have a special opportunity too, because you're doing those two somewhat related but like essentially different majors, which I couldn't even fathom doing. I guess business, so I guess you take the core business classes, and those overlap for those two. but I could never do two majors. I think, especially if I want to do a business one and a biology one, it just wouldn't work out for me.
Yeah, I know at least for me, with both majors being in the business school, I'm fortunate in the sense that a lot of the core requirements are very similar. So once you start to then get maybe junior or senior year and you get more major driven, that's when it kind of starts to separate a little bit.
Oh, so you're still kind of in that overlapping phase. I know that you're a little bit ahead too, so I'm guessing you're starting to branch out a little bit. But you're definitely still in that, like you're saying, that overlap phase where like both of your business majors are still using core business classes pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And it's kind of, I think a lot of the thinking is you kind of have this groundwork of like the business core, they call it. So you have this groundwork of business principles that you can kind of build off of almost. And then, once you have this groundwork and this foundation, you can then start to use that in finance, or in my case, in risk management and insurance. So you can kind of start to develop these skills in different avenues and really almost like personalize your major based off of the core classes you've taken.
That's super cool. Yeah, like because I don't know if this is the same thing, but like the reason I'm doing business intelligence analytics isn't because that was an interest of me at all. Like it's kind of like what you're saying with like the personalizing it. The reason I'm doing business intelligence analytics was because I took the DSS class that I took and I loved it. Like the other business classes I looked at, I wasn't as interested in as I was like data systems and like data like analytics like in the business scope and stuff like that. So I think I just like love what you're saying with the fact that like all these core business at St. Joe's allows you to kind of find your way into the business realm without having to know once you graduated high school like exactly what you wanted to do business wise, which I think some schools kind of lock you into because they're more like workforce oriented, but St. Joe's has that like core that helps you kind of branch out if you need to, but then also specialize if you find something that you're really passionate about.
And has that kind of major with business intelligence and analytics, has that been seamless with your kind of STEM type pursuance of what you're doing, or is that not, like, how does it mesh, I guess is the question to ask.
So as far as I've seen so far, there's like no overlap. I was able to get out of is a pessimistic way of looking. I was able to not have to do applied statistics because they said that I could take business statistics and it would apply for applied statistics. But I think that's the only thing from what I've seen that will overlap at all. And technically that's not even a true overlap because I got lucky with the fact that I was able to, use those business statistics credits as my applied statistics requirement. So I haven't really seen that type of meshing. Something that, and we were talking about this before, we hope to get him on this if we really can, like the show, is Dr. Mendoza, or Professor Mendoza, I forget if it's Dr. Mendoza, and I feel bad for not remembering, but he said something like, business intelligence analytics, it's not teaching you necessarily any, like, skills, or any, like, specific skills, but it's teaching you, and it's also showing future employers that you know how to learn and to, like, anticipate things. Because that's the whole point of business intelligence analytics is most people that are in that type of field are like statistically like using statistics to then anticipate things for a company and to do projections and to like show the company where they could be and what they should be doing to get there and to streamline processes. And that's what business intelligence analytics is kind of doing for me as a minor, because with the biology major I can then work with research, or I can work with medical technology or any type of like biological system, and I have a specialization there, so then I have the, I guess, credibility to be able to work in that field. But then with the business intelligence analytics minor, I can then also show companies and also gain the skills myself, even if they don't see it at first, that I have the ability to learn new things and be multidisciplinary.
Right.
And like be able to quickly, I guess, be on the same page as others that might have more experience than me, because I have that ability to kind of at least get the bare bones idea of what's happening, so then I can contribute like accurately, I guess, or efficiently.
Yeah, that's a neat thing that like I haven't looked into, and that certainly. I mean, I'd love to have Professor Mendoza on. Like that would be
amazing.
Yeah,
He
no,
was
go ahead.
fantastic.
And how
Oh,
was
yeah,
his?
that's it.
Yeah, right. I guess that's like, well, and hopefully we'll kind of get to talk about that with him when he
Yes.
comes on. Like that'd be
When he comes on, not if, because we're
what.
gonna get
That's
him.
right.
Yeah. We're
I'm
committed.
gonna manifest it, Jake, and I'm gonna
Don't,
say
yes.
when.
See,
There
you
we
learned a
go.
new.
I I did learn a new word. So another thing, and I'll kind of let the that you know very well is like I am not up on the lingo.
No, yeah, I
So
do know this. Yes,
yeah,
and I'm not
so
either, but I know more than you, which is saying something.
you do, yeah. But so where I work for now, it's been 5 summers now. I work at the Berks County
Wow.
Parks and Recreation Department, and every year they typically bring in what's called seasonal help, and that's like my job title, if you will, of what I do.
Okay.
So with the constant turnover that they have, we like get the young recruits, I'll say, which always are up on the newest lingo. So I've
Okay.
from like it
I'm seeing
sounds
where this is
crazy, but
going.
from like June to August, I'm usually on top of like the newest lingo that there's been out there.
See, I would know this because I only know you from
The rest of the time.
So I haven't seen you walk into an area with the new lingo yet. But I'm hearing that you get this from.
Yeah, and
That's
like
lovely. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, and I'll hear it, and of course, like, um, we're generally curious people, so I'll ask what that means, and the guys, yeah, this is what it means, this, that, and the other. So from about that time frame, I usually can get a good feel for about what the newest lingo is that
Okay.
everybody's using these days, and then Jake, from like August to May, I have like no idea.
You just
What?
completely out of it. It's like you've been living in the Stone Age for the last couple of months.
Yeah,
You
right.
just know nothing, yeah.
Yeah, I have my like stone pickaxe out here, and I'm like, I gotta go to work. Like but
You
I
got
don't.
your club and you're looking for marriage.
Yeah, right. But that's been like that's my lingo from wherever. So manifest
Okay.
is a new additive to my,
Now, I'll have you know, as far as I can remember, it's not that new. So, and I don't. I'm not sure. I think it's still relevant, but
Has it been cycled out, Jake? Am I not?
I think it's close to the end of its reign.
I'm the last person who's using it from
And
like.
you will be, I think. I think once we get back to
Sure.
campus, you'll be using that word, and I'll be like, I think we've. That sounds like an old term, pops.
I
don't know.
think we've passed on. Yeah, right.
It's moved to something new. I think
Oh my gosh.
we found something else or whatever. But
It-
it's fine, right? Because we'll just keep on learning the new ones every summer, and then you'll just be outdated for a couple months, and then come back with the hitters once you're back, right? So,
That's right. Yeah.
oh, yeah.
So that's like, besides the rest of the job, that's one perk of at least I get. And new, I guess, was a strong word, Jake.
Okay.
It's not really new. It's like seasoned lingo. Like
because
I'm
they're
not.
using it in the office, so I guess they're not using the brand new.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Okay.
And
what
I.
you're getting is like that. It's new for you, and I think that's more than enough for me to be satisfied. If it's new for you, then I'm
Jake,
fine
I'm
with you
touched.
hearing it and bringing it back to the conversation. I think.
Yes.
Right? If I don't get a Pop's new word every week, I think I go crazy. Even if it's a word that I've heard for the last year, if I hear it from you, I'm like, oh, yeah, I haven't heard that before.
I
That's
haven't.
good.
Yeah. Right.
Completely wiped from my memory until you say it, right? That's how it goes for me.
Yeah, and like, Jake, you'll know this too, but like, I don't have TikTok. I rarely go on Instagram, which is once again not for my own benefit, because then I lose out on all of these, the
All this
lingo and
and
the trends and everything like that.
all the thing, and I do see like some people that say like, oh, I'm not on social media because it's like social media isn't good. There's no inherent wrong with social media. I think it's just there is ways to either misuse it or for it to kind of engulf you.
Yeah.
So the people that say social media is bad, I disagree with you. And I think that it's just the way you're using. No, that's not true. But I think it's like it can get to a certain point where it's overwhelming, and I think that's where it becomes bad. But it's interesting to see you be so caught up on things, even more caught up than I am most of the time, without having like a constant stream of information that I'm scrolling through.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because we actually just talked about this at work like last week, and how I think we kind of grew up with social media as such like a norm.
Mm-hmm.
When it was a big thing when I turned, I forget when I first got Instagram, maybe it was like 15 or 16, but that was like a huge thing. Like I got Instagram, I was on Instagram, I was following all these people, and it wasn't bad because you were up,
Yeah.
like that was where I got all of my sports news from, and from my young age, that's where I got some of my news from too.
Right, yeah, because it's not like I'm going out and listening to all of the.
Yeah, right.
I'm
Like
not turning on the
NBC
TV
10
and
at
going and listening for 30 minutes. I was over there
right.
playing video games, and every now and then I'd scroll onto some type of like news outlet or something like that.
Yeah, and it's like I would just see it pop up, and I'd be like, oh, okay, this is interesting, and then you kind of watch the video or something.
Mm-hmm.
So ever since, I think growing up, ever since we've known it, that's been normal for us.
Yeah,
So I don't,
that's so true.
I don't really see it as bad either. I guess it can, it can get your attention, and then you can be on it for a while. But a lot of stuff on there is very beneficial. It kind of
I have
can.
a lot of like. I think today there was an account, and I completely forget the name, but they like take like really high def, like they have a really good camera that's like waterproof, or they waterproof it in some way, and they take these amazing pictures of like sharks and other like marine animals, and like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have
yeah.
like, detail on it is crazy because they have these really good lenses or really good cameras or whatever it is, but whatever they do, they take these beautiful pictures and they can zoom. You can zoom in and you just see like these, like also I think it was like a leopard shark they took a picture of. Correct me, I don't know if that's the right like animal, but it was awesome to see like this animal up close. And I just went I mentioned to you that I went to Key Largo, but I didn't mention that I went snorkeling when I went to Key Largo, and I took my phone in to the ocean with one of those like waterproof bags, and I got
No
pictures
way.
of my phone, but the quality difference between my phone and this amazing camera with a professional like photographer like who's like making their living off of like posting these pictures to social media is really funny because I'll have like these blurry pictures of fishes, and then they have this amazing picture from like 500 feet down of this really cool looking shark. But it's just like it was so awesome to be in the ocean and snorkeling. Like they boated us out like I think probably 5 miles to some reef, and we got to like swim around and like dive into like and go see everything. And I've never done that before, and it was amazing. But then the idea that I can just go onto like Instagram and see basically the same thing, but even more like crazy because these people are able to go to different places. It's awesome, but at the same time, it's different because experiencing going out there is a lot different than seeing it on the phone. So I get where people like why people say that it's not. How social media can be bad in that sense because some people like are only like are satisfied with the phone image of like some type of animal and they don't want to go out and see it. But I honestly like if I didn't have those types of like that information coming in of like people taking pictures of these things, I wouldn't have been super interested in going out because I wasn't really exposed to how cool it could be to go see that in person. You know what I mean? So, and that kind of comes back to, I guess, to what we're doing here, which is like exposing people to hopefully like professionals and hopefully professors and everyone in between, and to give them that exposure, even if it's just surface level, because I don't want to say it, but I feel like I doubt we're going to get too in depth with some short like 40-minute interview of somebody. But just that surface level exposure, so that they can be like, oh, I like what this person's doing. I like where they came from. I wonder if that's like something I can explore or something I can at least have as a hobby or something like that.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit it, Jake. Like that's, that was the thought, like the original thought, that this would kind of be neat for us, but also for people who are listening, because then they have the ability to, and you said this before with the kind of the platform that we're using, they'll be able to get on here and like pop a question in the chat,
Oh yeah,
and then we
like,
can,
live chat and everything. Yes, yes, okay.
yeah. So and then we'll have that ability to, ask their question to the professor, which I
Yes,
think is like incredible.
it could be fun, right?
Because
And
that
also
adds
it's
another
intimidating,
dynamic
right?
to it.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's intimidating. I know that when I like, because I'm doing, I guess I didn't mention it earlier, but I'm doing research with Dr. Braverman at St. Joe's in evolutionary genomics. I guess is what we've agreed is what I can call it for what I'm doing.
Okay.
And it was a friend of mine was the one she helped me like write the email and everything because it's really intimidating to try to reach out to these professionals and ask about their life because it's like you don't want to sound like you're wasting their time. I feel like, but I think
Yeah.
with what we're doing here, hopefully, we're I don't want to say the filter, but we're like what would be good or like a liaison. We're a liaison where we get to embarrass
Yes.
ourselves with questions instead of having the people that genuinely want to ask these questions get embarrassed because they ask something stupid. But I'll be completely upfront
Right.
after emailing like Dr. Braverman and talking to like Dr. Or Professor Mendoza and like interacting with them and asking them about like their careers and stuff. No professional, unless they're a real big jerk, is going to laugh at you for asking a question about their work that doesn't sound right. Most of them
Yeah.
will be excited to tell you the reason they're in their profession is because they wanted to go into their profession and they're passionate about it. So they'll be happy to tell you exactly what you're asking for, even if what you're asking for has nothing to do with what they actually do, but at least is somewhat related. So hopefully we can kind of influence people and kind of, I guess, bolster people's confidence when it comes to asking professionals like these questions and also asking just anyone like these important questions that they should be asking that
Yeah.
they should be learning, right?
Yeah. I think even as I kind of interact with new people, like networking is a big thing, and we're kind of
Oh yeah.
I almost want to say like at that stage where you're trying to really build your network and expand and do
Yes.
everything. So, you know, you kind of want to make a good impression on people, but you don't. I just was, I kind of cycle podcasts, Jake, every day. I have about like a 30-minute commute to work, so I like
Okay.
cycle different podcasts. And the one podcast I was listening to talked about like making impressions when you meet people.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because I had, never thought of that. I kind of just, I was very much myself when I met people, and they said like that's the best form to be. But it's also, to look at it from their perspective of how, how will they remember you by, and like what will they
Hmm.
remember you for? So the discussion went into how you can make an impression on those even around you with, you know, active listening and different things like that. So I hope that we can even, when we're interviewing or when we're kind of networking, I'll put air quotes on that,
Yeah.
we kind of, hopefully some of that maybe rubs off a little bit. And like we can, and the audience can maybe even get better at that. Cause I know that's something like I struggle with. I don't want to come off too,
Okay. Like too confident, yeah. But I
too
see exactly what
confident.
you're saying because I
Right.
know like when I was getting ready for us to talk and like
Yeah.
we're naturally like I think we just when we converse with each other are pretty good at keeping the conversation going.
Yeah.
But to kind of prepare myself mentally, and I also just have been addicted to like this one podcast that is it's like Markiplier, the YouTuber, like does a podcast with his friends Bob and Wade, and it's a really fun podcast. It's like one of the top like Spotify ones, and I legit just listen to like I love listening to that because, and I hope that we kind of can do the same thing. But when they talk and when you listen to a podcast, you almost feel like you're part of the conversation, and it kind of helps you warm yourself up and be ready to talk to people. And I hope that if we can like kind of foster that by just talking to each other, kind of foster like people like warming themselves up by listening to us, so that they'd be able to like then talk to these professionals. Because, and I don't know about you, but whenever I like have like some type of civil discussion, I guess it kind of gets your brain in like a civil mode, where then I feel like you're prepared to talk to a professional about something. Like what, like if anything, I should be like, whenever I talk to you, I'm like in that mood where I'm like, oh, I'm so ready to like talk to some like 50-year-old like pop. Just start talking to them like I'm their best friend, right? So it's like,
right.
And different people bring that different type of thing out, and I think we have different enough personalities that hopefully we can bring that out of people, that like ability to kind of have your mindset be on talking to people and be quizzical of these professionals. Is quizzical the right word? I think quizzical is the right word. Because I guess what's the thing, like monkey see, monkey do. I'm hoping that like people just seeing us asking those questions, even if we're not good at asking questions, it'll just put them in the mood to ask questions, and then they'll be willing to do it their own way later, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, I know kind of even a big thing when growing up was, how do you be comfortable with talking to people? And that sounds very... It sounds very weird to kind of say, but it's, you know, I found that there's some truth to that, is how can I talk to somebody who's 10 years old versus 15 years old versus 25 versus
and it's
40?
Like it's a science, right? Because you don't want to be like talking down to the 10-year-old.
Right.
You also don't want to sound like you're acting like a child when you're talking to like the 60-year-old, right? So it's like, but so you're like constantly switching between. I think I think the podcast I like, the Distractables podcast that I listened to, they were kind of talking about like people call it like, and I think a lot of people do it, but they're like, they call them masks. Like you kind of put on a different mask when you're talking to different people, where it's not like you're completely changing your personality, but you're putting on like this filter of your personality. It's like those memes that I don't know if it's like the one friend in the friend group who is a terrible person when he's with all of like the friends, but then as soon as your parents are like the nicest, most civilized person you've ever met. Like I think that why that meme kind of popped up was because it's so relatable, because it's like almost everyone does that, where like they're like this like when I hang out with my friends, some of them say the like strangest things, and then as soon as they're talking to my parents, they're like, hello, Mr. and Mrs. McNelly, like how has your day been? I'm doing swell. Like it's like they somehow just put on this mask, but they're still like, you can like, they're not like doing an act, right? But they're not completely themselves either. Like it's a filter, I feel like.
Yeah, and it's been, you know, weird for me a little bit, and I'm sure like for others, is that, you know, I don't know where this like pops mentality has popped out from, Jake, but like
I've always wondered that.
You know what I mean? Like I mean I have no idea.
Out like one day,
and I was just like
2004 or 5, and we're just like, hello everybody, welcome.
I was just like addressing people. Hello.
You had your tuxedo.
That's right.
Tightened your tie. Like hello mother, hello father. Yes.
Have you ever seen Boss Baby?
I imagine. Has anyone told you that they think that like when I imagine like I think I've told you this. Like, when I imagine, like the Andrew Haas household, I just imagine you walking around 5 years old like, I'm off to work now, mother. Don't worry for me while I'm gone. Like, just like I feel like, and I know it can't be true because there's no way, but I feel like you've always been this way, where like when people are talking to you, they feel like they're talking to like some type of like welcomed family figure. You know what I mean? Like some type of like, you know, adult or like parental figure. You know what I mean? Like, and we know you can get into your like, you definitely can get into your college personality, where you see the boss with the backwards hat going to like the basketball games and everything. But like I think your general personality seems to be like that, like that parental figure, and I don't know where that happened. And we have to get into it at some point, some other episode or something like that, where you just go through, I guess, if someone hit you on the head, maybe, and then you woke up and you felt like you were 60 years older than you actually were. Like, we don't know.
Well, and I kind of wondered too. Did you ever like pick up on things your dad said, and that started to add to what? Like, has this ever
I think
happened to
even like
you,
the
Jake?
small mannerisms too, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and I know like facial like structure is probably the same like from our parents. Like that's where we get it from, right? But
right.
I definitely know that when I'm upset, I can and now consistently will make the same face that my dad makes when he's upset. So no, it's interesting that like you feel like that there should just be like like you kind of inherit things from your parents, but it's weird
Yeah.
how it kind of like constantly happens. Like I didn't just like inherit everything from my parents and now everything's happening. Like this year I started kind of like saying things that I think my dad said or saying things that my mom said that I wouldn't have said last year, but I think just like being exposed to it and then somehow my personality's just been drifting into a direction where I've been naturally picking up what they said and kind of using it because it matches what I'm doing, right?
Yeah, and do you notice it with your siblings too?
Yes,
Do
no, because like people will say like my sister sounds like my mom, and I don't hear it, but sometimes
Right.
I'll hear it and I'll be like, oh, like I don't know, like, like
Yes.
what's happening there, like what?
Well, and so it's a kind of a thing, and I'm sure, as we kind of get older and siblings move off, I have two older brothers. And when we're all back in the house, I never used to think that our mannerisms were very similar. But now, it's as if we're like clones of each other. And I don't know if it's always been like that, and I've just never recognized it. But the other day, my eldest brother did something. And then my other brother did something, and I did something, and it was it was as if like we had done it in unison and all had thought of doing the same thing at the same exact time.
It's like
Yet
it's
we all did.
encoded in your biology, like you have to do this.
Yeah. Like, have you
Like,
ever seen?
I think I
No,
saw
go
that-
ahead.
There was an Instagram reel of this or a TikTok, I forget where I saw it on, where it was like the title was like you can tell that they're like related, and this kid just like runs across the screen like the screen screaming, and then like the other siblings are sitting there normally, but then as soon as they see this other sibling doing it, they just start running after it, and then the dad also joins in, and then it's like you can tell that this is part of the family, I guess. So like that's like I guess an overdone example of it, but it definitely like it's definitely true, and I think that what was I gonna say? I think that brings us back to kind of and I think this is why we kind of got to this discussion, but that brings us exactly back to like what we're trying to do and like kind of imprint ourselves, even though like we're not saying that we have some like amazing personality that we think should be imprinted on other people. But I think by imprint ourselves, I kind of mean, like, because everyone will do things their own way, and I think that if we just kind of present ourselves and as people that are like kind of questioning these like professionals or even just talking about like our experiences with like what we're doing and like our studies and stuff like that, I think it kind of brings out a different sense of people, I guess, if that makes sense, or they're kind of now in that mode where they're like kind of copying us, but not really because they're doing their own thing. And I hope to bring out the best in the people listening to this, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and the hope is that they kind of feel comfortable enough to like ask questions, and
like
we're
contribute.
we're just two guys talking. Like at the end of the day, that's kind of, but that's the beauty of it, is that the hope is that we can somehow, find a way to serve. I keep using this word serve, and I don't really mean that, but how can we create an opportunity for individuals so we can learn? We love learning. We're curious minds, but maybe you can learn a little too, just by vicariously almost living through us. that's kind of the hope, is that we have some people on who you can really pick their brain about and get a sense of how they function and how they work. So
Yeah.
maybe you can see yourself in there one day.
I think that's exactly what we're looking for, and I think that's a perfect way for us to end this off, because we're going to continue forever if we don't stop now. And I think that I just want to say that is exactly what we're looking for, to kind of imprint ourselves or imprint the people that we're interviewing onto the people listening or viewing. And with that, thank you for listening and or viewing. And I guess we'll see you when we continue this again, hopefully in person with a little bit better equipment, I think is what we're going for. So hopefully we can get to that. But for now, this is what it's going to be. And thank you. If you want to say anything before we go.
Yeah, just thanks for listening. We appreciate, kind of all the support that we're getting from everybody. And stay tuned. We hope to have a new show up soon. So take care.
Thank you. I loved that, actually. I feel welcome to Brewing Beginnings. That was a good way. Now, I think I don't want to keep on using the word brewing. I'm going to stop that. But
Yeah, no, I
can. But that was good. I'm gonna.
How was that?
I might not even cut out this discussion about it, because I think that just adds to the part that you did that. I was not scripted, and you were able to do that all on your own, I think.
No. That was assisted, Jake. That was assisted.
I'll take some credit.
Okay.
Don't
Yeah, right.
I'm a sucker for taking someone else's credit, so I'll do it.